Jo McKinnon has enormous experience in the show horse scene and is now retraining thoroughbreds at her property near Quirindi in New South Wales. She also has some strong thoughts about Australia's handling of the difficult topic of thoroughbred rehoming. Well, Jo, it's a bit of a cold snap here in Quirindi in the northwest of New South Wales. You come from a showing background in the equestrian world, but of course you're well known for your media commentary on Sky Racing in particular over the years. And now you're retraining thoroughbreds, an area that promotes a lot of discussion, doesn't it? Tell us about the horses you have here now.
I've got 4 thoroughbreds at the moment on the property, in amongst the rest of the herd, which is stock horses, one of which I bred myself, and I've got a quarter horse as well. So a mix of different breeds and purposes, but very much the off-the-track horses are a passion and a focus of mine. And the horses that I've got at the moment are at varying ages, stages and levels of their lives and careers. So I've got an old retired show hack who plays paddock nanny to the younger new horses that I get off the track, and also helped wean my stock horse that I bred, so that was fantastic. Recently, only less than 2 months ago, I acquired a horse by the name of Lazarus from Queensland, where he saw out his very short and slow career. My number one horse in the off-the-track team at the moment is a horse by the name of DP Choir. That's his show name, but his race name was Bring It. Fantastic horse, Ollie. All the work's pretty much done there, albeit they still, when they're older and more seasoned, have a few quirks and a few challenges to work through. But he is an exceptional horse with a great temperament as well.
His coat for this time of the year looks sensational. Explain the layers of rugs that you put on and off all the time.
Caroline, you've probably noticed my nails. Typical horse woman, I think, these days. I spend more time looking after my horses and their coats than myself. Yeah. One of the great challenges of having show horses and competitive ones is their coat. He's stabled every night. He's got layers of rugs, as you mentioned, and that in itself is a bit of an art, is to not have them too hot, not have them too cool, keep them out of the cold, icy winds on a winter's day, because that's when their coats, as they say, blow. You've got to be pretty obsessed with the whole process to keep it right. And of course, that type of management is important and crucial, but so too is the feeding regime of the horse. And there are lots of amazing supplements now and premix feeds on the market that you can use to really bring a horse's coat on. And you know what? At the end of the day, back to basics, nothing like a bit of elbow grease to really get their coat moving as well. So my horses are religiously brushed before and after they're worked. I try to avoid hosing them down on cool days and use a special oil that I mix with water to wipe them down. That puts a bit of oil back into their coat, but it's a bit of an old cowboy trick, that one, but it's better for the horse too when they're cooling down to not have had a wet hose down. The process I put them through is the same with all of them. So when they arrive, they're yarded depending on how quickly they settle into the new environment. Yarded and hard fed, my very light sort of ration, if you like. It's not too full of grain or anything like that. And good quality lucerne hay as well. Get them drinking, get them relaxed, get them settled into their environment, introduce them to the other horses here, the dogs, the very busy farm life that it is. I very carefully observe them in that yard for a week, sometimes longer, and handle them. It's really important to get a handle on them straight away. Don't just throw them out in a big paddock and suddenly expect to be able to handle a fully fledged racehorse fresh out of a paddock. Get a feel for the horse, its temperament, its attributes, so you know what you're dealing with down the track. I don't just set them loose into a 5-acre paddock with other horses to gallop around with. They go through a process again where they might go into a medium-sized paddock on their own to start with, see how they handle that. Then from there, they move into the bigger paddock on their own again, see how they handle that. They've got horses running alongside them, but just to see how they interact over the fence with the other horses, whether they're going to be suitable and safe enough to then eventually paddock with a herd of other horses. And they really love it. They just come alive. You can see the look in their eye, and their whole demeanour changes when they come to this environment. They're free, they're happy, they're exposed to lots of really interesting stuff, and that all pays dividends along the journey when it comes to then trying to make them into a competition mount. Assess their temperament. Be really judgmental of that from the outset, because some horses, unfortunately, are just not going to have the attitude and the temperament to make it or be a safe horse. So first and foremost, assess the temperament. Fortunately, I can use the stock horses here that are well trained, well handled, very quiet horses to train these young raw off the track horses. So with Lazarus, for example, he's at the moment in the groundwork phase. So I'm teaching him to tie up so that he can stand still for as long as I need him to, not nervously pawing the ground, champing his teeth, all those typical racehorse habits that they get off the track. So using Bandit, the stock horse, to tie up alongside him in the yards is a crucial part of their introduction to their life away from the racetrack. Monkey see, monkey do. They see the stock horse standing there very calmly, barely moving a hair for sometimes hours on end. They realise, oh, so it's not all helter-skelter and throw a saddle on me and, burn me along the racetrack. Suddenly they've realised, oh, life's now very different for me. So repeating that over and over and over for sometimes the penny drops with horses really quickly. Sometimes it takes a bit longer, but I have found that in the early stages of the journey that process works really well.
What do you see as the things that really need to be prioritised within the rehoming sphere in, any of the states of Australia?
Really important and interesting question, Caroline. I think ultimately anyone that invests in any animal, not just racehorses, buy a dog, you've got to look after it, make choices, make decisions. It's your responsibility. And I believe, as simplistic as this sounds, it should be the same for owning a racehorse. Whether you're a 2.5% shareholder, 20%, 80%, 100%, you must have an understanding that this horse might have a use-by date on the racetrack, but it's a living, breathing animal, and you have responsibility as the owner of that right through for the journey of its life. And some thoroughbreds can live to 25 years plus. That's a long time, and they change multiple hands and all that sort of thing along the way. But the original owner, I think, these days is more mindful of the importance of his or her role in this process. I think we're seeing more and more owners caring more about the longer term process with the horse, but I think we've still got a long way to go to making people understand that yes, investing in a racehorse is of course about ultimately trying to win a race, and preferably a Group 1 worth millions of dollars. That's the whole industry pitch is about that. It's what we all dream and aspire to. I've got a share in a racehorse myself, and he's fortunately won quite a number of races and been a really handy horse on the track. I'm also telling my fellow owners, who I brought into racehorse ownership for the first time, Caroline, about the importance of understanding that the horse is giving us great joy now, but we're all as a group going to have a responsibility once he finishes his racing career to think about where to next for him. It's good for the industry to be seen to be encouraging those people to take more responsibility for when they're finished in their racing careers. And you see it in some of the syndications now that they've come up with fantastic initiatives where that process is managed right through
as a
to
retirement
the very
fund.
end.
Yes.
Yes. And if we saw more of that, I think that would be fantastic and a long way to helping people like myself and others that are working with these horses at the other end of the line, sometimes the not very favourable end of the line, where there's vet bills, farrier bills, dentist bills, feed bills, your time to manage these horses, and dragging my poor husband through the journey as well, who's very supportive, and I'm very lucky. It's a huge process to undertake, so any support that owners, original owners of those horses, can give along the way is fantastic. And even just to have a genuine interest in what the horse is doing. Sadly, some owners probably don't really bother too much about what happens to that horse after it's finished racing and it hasn't won them a race, so they don't really care. But there are some owners that have a really genuine interest in seeing that horse progress in a different way.